Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor, and I'm the teen librarian at the Wapaka Area Public Library. Now, I know that most of you are probably used to seeing either Jan or Sue from the children's department, but now that you are all sixth graders, you have the awesome opportunity to be teen patrons of the public library, which means that you have access to teen programs, teen books, and you get to have me as your teen librarian. Now, I know that I'm a little bit wacky, but I promise it's always going to be a fun time, and I am here to help you in whatever way I can. And today, that happens to be giving you an awesome book talk. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen so that you can see this amazing book talk that I have created for you. Now, you should be able to see the presentation, and it's very cool. I know. And just so you all know, the Wapaka Area Public Library is open 6 days a week, and we still have curbside services available, which means you can pick up books and items from our back door, which is so cool. Okay, so we're gonna dive right into our book talks, all right? Now, first off, before we get into it, I have 6 books for you today. That's right, 6 whole books. As I'm going through this presentation, I want you to take notes of the books that you might be interested in reading so that you remember. Because if you're like me, you might see all 6 books and be like, oh man, I want to read all of them. But she's already done talking and I can't remember what the titles of them were. So try to keep a note of the ones that you're interested in, okay? After the talk, you can place holds on these titles through your school library. Mrs. Hanneman will have copies of the books brought to the school for you guys to check out. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now that we have all this ironed out, we're gonna jump right in. Here we go. The first on our list is Snapdragon by Kat Lay. Now, before I go into what this book is about, I need to just put it right out there that Snapdragon is one of my all-time favorite graphic novels to have come out in 2020. It is amazing, and the drawing inside of it and the art is so good and bright and colorful. I love it, and I know you will too if you give it a chance. And here's why. Here's what it's all about. Now, Snap, this lovely girl on the cover, Snap's never really fit in necessarily. And I'm sure that Snap's not the only person who's felt like that. I know I certainly haven't felt like I fit in at times. But it's even to the point where Snap gets bullied at school. And really, Snap's only friend is her pit bull, whose name is Good Boy. And as we can see, Good Boy is a very good boy. He's very cute. Which means that Good Boy has a lot of meaning to Kat. And really, aside from Kat, she has her mom, but mom usually works really, really late, and mom's trying to take school classes too, and money's kind of tight, so Snap kind of has to entertain herself. Well, one day, Good Boy goes missing, and Snap has an inkling of where Good Boy might be, because you see, small towns have secrets, and some have legends, and well, in Snap's town, their legend seems to be a local witch. And Snap is really, really worried that that might be where Good Boy went. He might have gotten stolen by the witch, and she has to go on a rescue mission to save him. Little does she know that after meeting Jax isn't who she thinks she is. In fact, she's not sure that Jax is a witch at all. But the two of them, after meeting, form a friendship, a partnership more so. And it is up to Jax and Snap to work together to survive the summer. And along the way, she meets some other friends like Lewis and learns a bit more about Jax's past and figures out that Jax might not be who she thought she was this whole time. But I'll leave that for you guys to find out. The next book on our list is Stand Up, Yumi Chung by Jessica Kim. So this book is a chapter book, and it is So funny. I absolutely adore Yumi. Now, Yumi dreams of being a world famous comedian, just professional comedian going on stage telling her jokes. She even has a notebook where she keeps track of all the jokes that she comes up with in a day. And some of the workers that work at her parents' restaurant, they'll admit she's pretty funny. She's a pretty funny girl. But her parents, they don't want her messing around with this. They think that trying to do comedy is a load of nonsense and that Yumi should really be focusing on school. I'm sure we've all heard this from our parents at one point or another, but her parents are just a little bit more strict. In fact, Yumi doesn't get the best grade on like a pre-test, and her parents are really worried that if she doesn't get a better grade on the next test, she won't be able to get a scholarship to this really fancy private school that really her parents can't afford unless she gets this scholarship. So it's a big deal to them. And Yumi could really care less, but anything to make her parents happy. So over the summer, her parents do the lovely thing of signing her up for a summer school study session, which Yumi really wants nothing to do with. Now, this study session happens at a library, and one day after the first meeting or so, she happens to be leaving the library only to realize that they have a new comedy club opening in town. And Yumi is so excited. She could have never imagined something like this opening in her city. And so she decides to sneak in just to see what it's about. She thinks it's pretty cool. And she sneaks in only to realize that there's a comedy club or a comedy camp being held throughout the summer. And it's being taught by her favorite YouTuber of all time. And Yumi nearly faints from how excited she is. This is everything she's ever dreamed of. Except she's pretty sure her parents aren't going to let her bail on study class, on her study group, to go and join a comedy club. So she has to find a way to make it work. And she tries. In fact, she sneaks into this club and she gets mistaken for another camper. And rather than correcting the person running the group, she kind of just goes along with it. She uses it as an in. And what she thinks is if she can keep up her studying and raise those grades, as well as be able to practice her comedy and show it off at a big show at the end of summer, then maybe, just maybe, she can convince her family that her doing comedy is totally worthwhile and it isn't going to mess with her grades. Well, that's until she starts to kind of lose control of all the things she's trying to juggle in her life. And her parents start losing money for the restaurant that they're running. They're just not making enough money. And things start happening. And she has to try and keep everything afloat. So it's up to you guys to find out. Does she make it to the comedy show? And how does it go if she does? Only you can find out. The next up, we have Clean Getaway by Nick Stone, Nick Stone is one of my favorite authors, and learning that she wrote Clean Getaway for kids who are in middle school is so awesome. And Clean Getaway is such a good book. I could talk all day about it, but why not have Nick tell you what it's all about? Take it away. I couldn't have said it better myself. Not to mention the fact that Scoop's pretty relatable, and especially when he's going on an RV trip with his grandma cross country. It can get pretty interesting, especially when he figures out that there's a box of things that his grandma is keeping secret from him, but he doesn't know what they are or why they're there. So, in order to find out, you are going to have to check out Clean Getaway by Nick Stone. Oops. Okay, next up, we have American as Paneer Pie by Supriya Kelkar. Now, this story is about a girl named Lekha and her family. Now, her family is the only South Asian family in a very small suburban town. And sometimes she tends to stand out a bit more than other kids, and she's not really a big fan of it. When she's not worrying about homework and school, she's usually spending a lot of time with her best friend Noah and a lot of time working really hard on doing swim team practice and trying to be like the fastest swim member that they have. She's working really, really hard. And all of a sudden, their neighborhood gets a new addition. And in fact, this person is her neighbor. And it turns out that their new neighbor is named Avantika. And Avantika is also from a South Asian country. And they are recently, like, just came across the ocean. And she's very, very comfortable and confident in her expression of culture and her just being herself. And at the same time, Lekha just looks at her and she can't imagine being anything like that. She doesn't know whether or not she should be herself and embrace her family's culture, or if she should just focus on blending in and fitting in just to make school go a little bit easier. And things only get worse when local politics start to get really, really ugly and her family comes in the crossfire. And it's up to Lekha whether or not she wants to stay quiet or raise her voice. And you're going to have to find out what she chooses to do by reading American as Paneer Pie. Next up, we have Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mbalia. And this is a Rick Riordan Presents book. And what that means is that if any of you have ever read Percy Jackson or any of those like heroic mythological stories about adventures and magic and all that stuff, this is like a featured book because it has all of those elements in it. And Rick Riordan thought it was really, really cool and he wanted to like promote it, which is really awesome. And I read Tristan Strong and I could not put it down. It was so, so good and so fast paced. Essentially, this is a story of Tristan Strong. And Tristan Strong comes from a long, long family line of boxers. And that's a really big deal to him, especially when he loses not only a boxing match, but then also has to deal with the fact that his best friend, Eddie, just passed away. And he's taking it really, really hard, which is understandable. And his family doesn't really know what to do, so they send him to stay with his grandparents over the summer and just try to, you know, heal and, you know, figure out how to live his life from this point on. It's really hard for him. Well, the only thing he has left of his friend Eddie is Eddie's notebook. And this notebook is filled with stories, just stories of like John Henry and the Brer Rabbit and the Brer Fox and all these amazing like West African stories that Eddie found really, really fascinating. And all of a sudden, one night, this book starts to glow and Tristan doesn't know why. And not only does it start to glow, but something tries to steal it from him in the middle of the night. A little tiny baby doll tries to pull it out of his hands and he has to chase it down into the woods. Accidentally, during the chase, he winds up punching a hole in the sky. I know, sounds crazy, but you're gonna have to read the book to figure out how it happens. Essentially, what happens after that is Tristan gets sucked into a world that's called, I have to think of it, Mid-Pass. And Mid-Pass is this reality where there are gods and there are fictional book characters that he didn't think were like real, but they're standing right in front of him. John Henry is there, and they're getting chased down by these iron shackle monsters that are trying to pull them into the darkness. And it's up to Eddie, or it's up to Tristan to try and save not only his world, but the world of Mid-Pass as well. And you're gonna have to figure out, A, is he able to? And If he does, what happens? Only you can find out. And the last book on our list is Fly Girls: How 5 Daring Women Defied All Odds and Made Aviation History by Keith O'Brien. This is such a great book for anyone who's really into historical nonfiction stories. So this is completely true. And it's written like a story. It's not written like a fact book. It's really, really good. Essentially, between World War I and World War II, a new sport had kind of come into existence. And that sport was known as air racing. That's right. Basically racing airplanes through the sky to see who could race the fastest. And many of them had their own personalized planes, had to make their own adjustments and little quirks and changes to their plane's design in order to make it fly faster. And it was always a game of trial and error. People would flock to these races just to see who would make it to the other end. And these games were dangerous. Sometimes your plane ran out of gas, and sometimes you crashed, and it was exhilarating and adrenaline pumping. And O'Brien, normally these stories are all about the men who would race. And in this time, it was a really big deal that they actually had 5 female pilots who consistently competed for their right to race against the men and had to prove themselves in doing so. And O'Brien tells their story. Some of them were school teachers, some of them were mothers, some of them were just helping to run businesses, and just average everyday women who wanted to fly. These women were Florence Clegan Smith, Ruth Elder, Ruth Nichols, Louise Thaden, and one name that you might recognize as Amelia Earhart. That's right, Amelia Earhart was in this book as well. All of these women compete throughout the book to try and earn a chance to be official, recognized pilots. And it's all leading up to this one big race happening in 1936 called the Bendix Transcontinental Speed Race. And only one of them has a chance at winning. And you're going to have to read this book to find out who that might be. And you might be surprised at who it is. Again, amazing nonfiction book. If any of you are interested in history, action, and it's full of pictures, which is so cool. I love it when they put pictures in these books because it helps me to really see it in my mind. And those are the 6 books that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm so glad that we are able to communicate in this way. And I can't wait to hopefully see you at some of our virtual programs. Don't worry, I'll be sending Mrs. Hanneman a whole list of all the awesome things that we have going on at the library, including a Minecraft club. We have a book club, which is really cool. And we also have this thing called Teens Talk Thursdays, where you guys can come into a Zoom meeting and we can play like Among Us, Drawful, all kinds of awesome virtual games, and being able to hang out and kind of unwind from the week, because I know you guys all have really, really long weeks. And I cannot wait to have even more fun with you guys. Yeah. And as I said earlier, curbside service is available at the library 6 days a week. If you ever want to put something on hold, have you or a parent visit infosoup.org, and you can find all kinds of amazing books to put on hold, movies, video games, all kinds of stuff. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to me. You can call us at 715-258-4418. That's like a direct line to the teen room, and I will help you out. Okay? It was wonderful talking with you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.